My name is Adelaida Munoz. I am a grad student at Grand Canyon University, and I will be explaining the IEP process and its components. First and foremost, the IEP is protected by the IDEA law, which stands for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is a federal education law that protects those who qualify and will be able to receive special education and its related services from public schools. IDEA requires public schools to provide the following, which is a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. First and foremost, we will talk about the initial evaluation for the special education admission process. We will have a referral process, which is a written or verbal notification from a parent or a school sent to a local education agency to start the evaluation of a student who may or may not have a disability under the disability categories from Texas, which would be any of these following autism, deafblindness, deafness, emotional disturbance, a hearing impairment, an intellectual disability, an orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, a specific learning disability, a speech or language impairment, a traumatic brain injury, a visual impairment, including blindness, or multiple disabilities. Any of these disabilities will qualify under the IDEA for special education. Next, we will have a notice of action, which is a written notice to provide consent from parents to evaluate the child, whether they have a disability or not, so that they can qualify for special education. After that, we will have a full and individual initial evaluation, an FIIE, an evaluation that is performed to decide whether the student has a disability, any of the disabilities I mentioned already, and what their educational needs will be. So if they qualify, we will have a specially designed instruction. We will talk about accommodations or modifications, what assistive technology they need, and so on. After that, we will have a notice of art committee meeting, which is admission review and dismissal. The school provides the parent with an art process or meeting within 5 days' notice on a mutually agreed time and place. After that, we will have an initial art committee meeting. This is where eligibility is decided. IEP steps are then taken, and they will provide parents of the decisions and actions and have the opportunity for them to consent and take action of special education services. So we will also talk about parent and guardian and student involvement in the IEP. This is very important because when a child feels that they have a support from not only their teachers, but also their parents, the administrators, or their guardians, we will have a better successful outcome with their academic achievement and other developmental areas. So it's very strongly suggested that parents and guardians are involved in all this process. And in the last 6 years that I've been working with special education, in the special education field, I see most of parents are involved in their children's academic interests and other developmental areas. I know teachers do everything they can to communicate and have the parents involved in these meetings and the art meetings and their IEP process and everything in between and so on. So after that, we start with writing an IEP. What is an IEP? An IEP is an individualized educational program. It is a written statement of the educational program designed to meet a child's individual needs. So whether they need more time or to be in a self-contained unit. It's just so many accommodations and so many things that can be involved in the process of a child's learning day and activities. So these are the components of an IEP. We will see the current levels of academic achievement and functional performance. So how much academics they have under their belt, how do they learn, what do they need to better learn the instruction that is given by all the other teachers, whether they have inclusion or not, least restrictive environment, all that is talked about in their IEP. And in functional performance, whether they need physical therapy, occupational therapy, what are their cognitive skills or lack of. Also, they talk about annual goals in the IEP. I know parents are very involved. They want their children to succeed and to pass on to the next grade level and eventually graduate and become functional adults. Especially design instruction and related services. So an SDI is also written by the special education teacher, and they collaborate with the general educational teacher to provide these accommodations or modifications and everything else that is needed for the student to succeed. And related services. What are related services? Like I've mentioned before, some students need occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapist, psychological evaluations, and so on. I am a BI aide, a behavior intervention aide, and I have been working closely with one of my students for the last 2 years. And I know he does have a psychologist come speak to him every other month or so, and he also has speech therapy. So those are the services that are related to the special education settings. IEP also has, like I said, accommodation modifications when they take their district assessments, when they take, and I'm in Texas, their STAR test, their benchmarks, they have accommodations, whether they need to be in a quiet place, whether they need headphones and stuff like that. We also talk in their IEP when these services will begin and how their progress will be measured. So progress can be measured with anything they do through observations, through daily assessments, how they complete their work, their benchmarks, and so on. Who is involved in the IEP process? The IEP requires school administrators to be there, present, teachers, specialists, parents, and even the students are involved in this IEP process. So, expectations for ongoing communication. Expectations are always be communicating. Like I said, I work with behavior intervention teachers, and I've also worked in life skills. I've worked for preschool program for children with disabilities, and every day we speak to parents, whether it's before school, during school, after school. It could also be the weekends. It could be anytime. These lines of communication should always be open. And nowadays, there is no excuse to not communicate because there's so many ways. You can call, we can text, we can send an email, and now we have resources like Class Dojo, these are applications that people have on their phones, Reminds, Google Classroom. And I know nowadays sharing and communicating is so easy. So there is no excuse to have that communication between parents and guardians and administrators and teachers and even the students. So that is the gist of the IEP process under IDEA regulations. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day. Thank you.